What's up guys, I wanted to revisit the Galaxy A34 since it got the One UI 6 update. It was one of my favorite mid-range phones that we've looked at this year, and I like to throw this phone in there for people who don't want an older flagship, because you guys know at this price range of about like 230 bucks, I would recommend a S21 FE. It's just a better phone overall. But some people, they just want a new phone, and also this phone also has SD card support, which I think is pretty nice as well too. That's a feature that a lot of people like. But sometimes I will bring on mid-range phones on the channel, because I know some people that really are looking for a mid-range phone. But this phone in particular is pretty good because the chipset on it is really nice. So we'll go ahead and talk about that. But yeah, you can see brand new. You can get it on Amazon, eBay, $239. So let's go ahead and talk about One UI 6. It's a very smooth experience, and I think the One UI 6 update definitely made the animations and everything a little bit smoother as well too on this phone, which is really impressive because back when a couple years ago I would look at mid-range phones and they were never this smooth. Like, it's really impressive how far these mid-range phones have come. I mean, you would see a lot of lag on mid-range phones even 4 or 5 years ago at this price point. So for 200 bucks, cheap phones are getting really good, guys. But like I said, I still would recommend like a S21 FE, but I'm actually pretty impressed with this phone every time I use it. So you can see right there, that's sometimes you get like that little stutter on Google Now, but you can see it goes away. But other than that, I've never really had this phone really like lagging and stuff like that. It's really impressive how fast the phone is. So the One UI 6 update, very nice. You get a lot of the features you would get in the newer phones, of course. I do have a video going over One UI 6, but if you're curious about the update, battery life is still good, and performance I think is actually a little bit better. Let's talk about the display on the A34. It's not a bad display at all. It's actually a pretty good display. It's a Super AMOLED display, and it is a 120 Hz display. It has 1000 nits brightness on here, so it gets fairly bright enough. In direct sunlight, you can still kind of see it. It's not like it's completely unseeable. But the display is a little nice. We do have the little water drop notch design, which is an older design, but again, this is a $200 phone. But as far as display quality, it's actually very good. Colors look very nice and vibrant. Like I said, the display, I think it's bright enough. And yeah, I was pretty impressed. 120 Hz, so it feels smooth. This is a pretty decent size phone. It's a 6.6 inch display. It's completely flat, of course, and of course you got a little bit of bezel here, but like I said, it's a budget phone, right? But the display quality wise is pretty good, guys. Like I said, it's bright and it's colorful. It's 120 Hz, very smooth. I was pretty impressed, and like I said, I even actually like this phone a little bit more than the A54, which I'll talk about probably in another video. But yeah, the display on here is actually pretty good, guys. Alright, so here is, I still think one of the most impressive things about this phone is the Dimensity 1080 chipset on here. It's really phenomenal. Look at the scores we get on Geekbench, 994 and 1977. You guys can see what it compares to. For a $200 phone, this is actually pretty impressive. So Dimensity 1080, we also have Mali G68 GPU, and then we have micro SD card support, so you can go ahead and expand the storage if you take a lot of video, download a lot of games and stuff like that. 128 gigs of internal storage and 6 gigs of RAM is on board. So if we hop into a game like PUBG, now this phone, it's not as well optimized as something like the S20 FE, right? That is going to be able to play games a little bit better. So I wouldn't necessarily say this is going to be the best option for gamers, but I think it is a pretty decent gaming phone for the casual gamer, for somebody who casually comes in and plays PUBG, Call of Duty Mobile, stuff like that. But like I said, if you're trying to really do like some gaming at a competitive level, again, go with an older flagship. So when it comes to a game like PUBG, we can play at pretty decent settings, but we don't have HDR Extreme as far as some of the higher settings you can get on an older flagship, and even some older flagships do at 90 frames. So that's why I said I would go with an older flagship. If you are a competitive gamer, you just get better frame rates. But as far as like the casual gamer, this is totally fine, guys. It plays PUBG really well, Call of Duty Mobile really well, most games, like casual games, Subway Surfer, it has no job playing most games. So if you're not really into gaming, obviously, you're not going to really care. But if you're somebody that comes in and plays a couple matches, you can see it is very smooth experience for the most part here. You really don't have any problem with lag or even with like any type of heating problems at all with this phone too. So I think overall a respectable, little $200. I'm telling you guys, back at like 4 years ago, you wouldn't be able to get these settings. You wouldn't be able to get this type of smooth gameplay on these type of like budget phones, because this is not really a mid-range phone. It's it's more of a budget phone. So yeah, so I'm actually just pretty impressed with how smooth the phone is in general. Alright, so I do want to touch on the hardware, and it's a pretty nice looking phone for the most part. Now it does have a cheap feeling because it's all plastic, but for the most part, I mean, it doesn't look like a cheap phone at all. This doesn't look like a $200 phone at all. It has the pretty much like the flagship design that we see on the Galaxy S23 and stuff like that. It's a really nice looking phone to look at, but like I said, it has that plasticky feel to it, and it's very comfortable to hold as well too. It's curved on the edges, so that's really nice. We also have the fingerprint scanner on here. It's not an ultrasonic one, but it definitely gets your job done. You could also use the face unlock on this guy as well too. And you also have IP67 dust and water resistant on here, so you can get this phone wet no problem. So if you get it wet in the rain or drop something on it, it'll be perfectly fine. This phone does have stereo speakers. So you actually do have pretty decent speakers on here, pretty good amount of bass quality as well too. Overall, you get a pretty nice full sound even when you cover the bottom speaker. Now when it comes to the cameras on the A34, this is where I can kind of see where it's a budget phone, and you really can only really see that if you take it out of any type of good lighting condition. So when you're outdoors, I think it takes just as good as photos as something like most mid-range phones, right? I think it's kind of up there, but anything that's out of any kind of decent lighting, and also the selfie cam, I honestly didn't think was that good. It's a little soft, and your skin tones are always kind of off for me. But the camera specs on here is a 48 megapixel standard and 8 megapixel ultra wide. Has a 5 megapixel macro, and then a shoots in 4K 30 on the front and back. And you have a 13 megapixel selfie cam on here. Like I said, the photos come out pretty good if you're in good lighting. And again, this is I'm gonna keep saying this, it's a $200 phone, so you pretty much expect this type of quality. But I think dynamic range and overall color is decent when you're outdoors. I think it takes pretty good photos. Like I said, if you're not in any type of low light condition, then that's when you start getting just kind of soft photos, and I don't think the video is also all that great if you're not in really good lighting. So yeah, so the cameras on here are pretty decent for the most part. If you're outdoors, it'll do a really good job. If you're indoors or anything low light, then you'll notice kind of soft image quality for sure. But yeah, what do you guys think? Be sure to let me know what you think about the cameras. But yeah, that's pretty much what I think. Now, I think battery life is also one of the impressive things with this phone. It has a 5,000 milliamp hour battery, and then you also have 25 watt wired charging. Of course, there's no wireless charging on this phone, but battery life is really good. I think this is where this phone shines the most. It can easily go like 2 days of screen on time. So I was pretty impressed with the battery life for the most part. I had no issues. I never felt like I needed to charge this phone throughout the day or anything like that. It easily can go all day, if not 2 days. So it really doesn't matter whether you're playing games or whatever you're doing. The phone's battery life easily is an all-day phone. So I was pretty impressed with that. And it charges somewhat decently fast at 25 watts. So yeah, so what do you guys think of the Galaxy A34? I think it's a pretty decent phone for the price. Really good display. I think the chipset on here is awesome. You got micro SD card support. The build quality, you know, it's what you would expect for 200 bucks. But everything else is really good with this phone. Like I said, it's fast, and the cameras, like I said, the cameras, you can kind of tell, like, you know, if you want a mid-range phone with a really good camera, I personally would go for like a Pixel. The A54 does a pretty decent job, but even with that, still, like I said, I would go with a Pixel or an older flagship if you're really into cameras. These mid-range phones, like if you take them out, mid-range or budget phones, if you kind of take them out of certain lighting conditions, then you kind of, I don't know, you get kind of an okay shot. It's not really that great. Be sure to let me know what you guys think, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.